Good day, everyone. Kind of like an impromptu, but welcome to an episode of Let's Talk Commercial Real Estate Investing, the Black Community Edition. I'm your humble host, Dominic Green, Managing Partner, Tenneco Commercial Real Estate Services here in the Dallas area. I wanted to just pop in real quick. Something that was actually on my mind while I was out doing a little bit of site selection work, and then the previous day, talking and networking, and then someone was saying that they were doing a development, and so wanted to kind of talk about just briefly, because this is a platform to talk about commercial real estate investing, and one part of that is investment in infield redevelopment or adaptive use projects, right? So one of the things that I think for those that are interested in doing development, consider doing redevelopment, right? Infield development, in a sense. Taking the building and repurposing it, especially if it's a building that has good bones, good structure, because obviously the cost is, in some cases, it's lower initially, because when you acquire the building, you can definitely acquire it if it's vacant, if it's kind of facade wise dilapidated, at a lower price. You already got the land, you already got the use. In some cases you may have to rezone it, depending on what use you want to do with, as opposed to building from the ground up, which can take a little bit more time because you got to build the structure and all that. But you already have the structure in place. And then looking on a smaller scale, right? There's companies out here that's what they specialize in. They specialize in doing adaptive reuse and infield, smaller type of developments. So one thing I can tell you, especially when I was in the design district, for those who are familiar with Dallas, and you kind of see the energy that's going on there with a lot of the redevelopment. A lot of those industrial buildings are being redeveloped into, improved flex spaces, improved retail spaces, a combination of work live, and then you got the guys that from my point of view, that come in there, have big money, big backing, they're going to do the larger scale type of developments. But even with that, I think there's opportunities for us to go in as the big money and spend the money on research, spend the money on getting, definitely the infrastructure, which can oftentimes be costly depending on what you're using the property for. But to go in and pick around the edges, right? Take advantage of the huge investment from not only the city, but from the large equity groups, syndicators, real estate companies, and development companies that are spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on redeveloping a certain area, and you can come in and, get a piece of that. Especially if, depending on your capacity, depending on where you are in your investment career, in the development career, you may not have such financial capacity, but you have the ability to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are there. So, with that also being said, is do your research, right? Do your due diligence. I was looking at a project that someone was mentioning they were doing, and in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, for the amount of retail that they're having on this particular project, well, that area has a huge vacancy of retail out there. So the very first thing you would want to ask is why, and then if you're going to have so much retail, who is the customers, who are the tenants, the businesses that are going to serve these customers? And then for the amount of rent that you got to charge, because with development you got to make the numbers work, you're asking someone to pay double, obviously, for a newer product. But the question I would ask is why, right? Because essentially, depending on the particular tenant, and depending on the ownership of those particular buildings, the first thing a lot of them are going to do is look at costs. Well, hey, it's 50% less to stay here And given our weight and our power, maybe we can get the landlord to spend all the money to rehab the space, because now they got a better tenant in there. They can make an investment in there and get into this space, right? Especially when there's so much vacancy there. So it goes back to supply and demand, right? At the basis of it. You have an oversupply space, which obviously lowers the asking. Then also you got to see how much downtime, what's the vacancy, what's the absorption rate in the area. But again, like I said, it boils down to supply and demand. So is there enough demand to support that much retail, right? And that was just kind of the first thing I was looking at. And then obviously, you know, the way that they carved the parcels for other things, which I feel like, okay, that makes sense. There's synergies in the area for those particular uses. But that's just one of the things I wanted to bring to the top of mind, what was on my mind. It's definitely, man, do your research, do your due diligence, speak to brokers, look online, talk to the community, talk to other businesses to get an idea before you pursue such an endeavor, especially when you're talking about development, where you're talking stabilization of these projects is like 3 years at the minimum out. You got to raise a lot of money. There's a lot of risk up front, leasing risk, construction risk, financial risk. But with all that being said, there's still opportunity there. Like I said, there's with so much energy in a certain area where investment is being made, I would kind of look there first and see where on the outskirts you could be, if not on the out edges of it, or is there opportunity still inside? And you may have to pay a little bit more, but even with that being said, if the uses and the demand is there, paying a little bit more for almost a higher probability of success and a lower chance of failure and risk is worth it. But I think there's opportunity in that. There's just something on my mind as I was site selecting, looking again, and having a conversation with someone about development. And then you can see the buildings, looking at the buildings, see what other uses can be made out of it. Because this repurposing happens all the time, right? Because there's going to be a shakeup in office. Office is not going away. The way that it's being used is going to change. If you're listening to a couple of if you follow me on our Facebook page, our Facebook group, posting some of the articles and the webinars and webcasts that larger firms are posting about what they're seeing on a larger scale. Real estate is local, but you can listen and follow the macro trends and then break it down to a micro level and see how it can be used in your area. So they're talking about a lot of these buildings are, especially your C-class, B-class office buildings, are probably going to be obsolete in some cases, or in most cases definitely in the C part, because of a lot of the companies are going towards more of the newer product, better amenities, all that good stuff, better located, all that good stuff. Some of the B's are being upgraded to more of A-class style, A-class finishes, or just in general better finishes for that particular market. But a lot of the C product is going to have to be reused or redeveloped or adapted, right? And so the uses of those properties are turning into obviously residential, because what is the one thing that we are lacking is the supply of housing, right? The more supply you introduce, the better you can have affordability, right? Supply and demand. So that's being done. Mixed use conversions of these properties, where it's residential, office, retail, and all that. Medical in some cases, if that's available. Senior housing, and they go back to the residential part. And so, adaptive reuse, infield, redevelopment, all that. I think there's opportunity there. You just got to be smart about it. You got to do your due diligence. It still is a risk. just have the plan, your plans well thought out, support of the community. Obviously, the marketing and all that needs to go, and the renderings and all that stuff needs to be good. But like I said, do your due diligence. There's opportunity there. For me, my perspective, I'll let the big guys spend all their money, and then dig around the edges until I can get capacity, and then you can take a little bit bigger risk and be more of the catalyst, right, to the area, because you'll be able to get in first. And since you got in first, you pay less. But like I said, real estate is local, so definitely for those that are interested in doing that or want to pursue that, I would definitely suggest just drive around the city, see where the city is investing money in infrastructure, roads, lights, sidewalks. Definitely pay attention to the minutes and read of the agendas from the council, the city council minutes. There's a lot of good information there. You find out who's trying to get approved for what type of zoning, what type of projects, where the path of progress is. Go to all of their development meetings, speaking with your economic development people, find out what they're needing, what they're pursuing. On that basic level, then look where the investors, the well-known developers, where they're going, where they're investing. Find out who they are, and then search their names in your county appraisal and see what they recently just bought. Right? Because not all the time that's widely advertised. Because they're secretly trying to acquire as much land, properties, without anybody else noticing, so they don't have to pay more, right? But they have something in mind. And then when you're seeing a lot of energy and synergy from these type of developers, putting this money in, doing development, taking these old buildings, repurposing. I mean, just here recently, in the Dallas article, Todd Interest is really investing in downtown and investing hundreds of millions of dollars in these old skyscrapers, repurposing them into more mixed-use properties, which I believe they should have been doing in the first place, because a lot of those buildings have been vacant for years or don't have very little occupancy. But you're in a prime location, you're in downtown, you have a lot of Fortune 500 companies that office down there. You have a lot of growing residential individuals that are living down there, the urban core. So it just kind of makes sense in that essence. But like I said, pay attention to what's going on. Depending on where you're at, where your capacity is, take advantage of the larger guys' investments, and find your opportunity in it. Because as one guy told me, there's enough for everyone. Because they can't buy everything. They can't develop everything. Everybody has certain constraints. So you can find your opportunities that are small, mid-sized, or maybe even big within those opportunities that the larger guys who have more money than you, who have more capacity than you, teams and all that stuff, data, you can leverage that to your advantage, especially for us, like I said. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to acquire commercial real estate, definitely income-producing commercial real estate for the cash flow. In those cases where you're doing redevelopment, you're taking something that was vacant, that wasn't producing any income, and you're creating an opportunity to produce income with that particular property. So I think it all still falls in the same line. Hold for long term if possible. Refi and stuff, and take some of that equity out, but continue to hold. Like I said, at the end of the day, we're using this to take care of our families, support the things that are most important to us, reinvesting in our communities as well. which is definitely important, and then bringing others that look like us along. So like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. I know this was a little impromptu, an additional video, but it was just something that was on my mind, and it just kept repeating. So I was like, let me go ahead and just discuss it, put it on the platform. Let's have a further discussion. People should like, share, subscribe, provide their comments, provide their thoughts, and keep that conversation going, right? So, thank you guys again tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, press the little bell, give it a thumbs up, thumbs down if you liked it or you didn't like it. So that way we continue to share. And if there's any particular topics that you guys are interested in, let's definitely let me know, reach out. If there's anything I can be of service to, definitely reach out. And let's let this conversation continue, even offline. So until next time, guys, happy investing. Peace.